Good morning everyone, Miss Sally here from Learn to Grow. It's really sunny out, it's beautiful, and it's going to be a warm week, so I'm really excited about that. So what I'm doing today is I'm going to plant some potatoes in a container. So I'm going to, kind of like an experiment I'm doing, I'm going to compare it to the potatoes in the garden bed and see the difference between the two for harvest, see how much we yield from each method. So I read that and also found out from a friend that container planting the potatoes will eventually yield more potatoes since that you can mound soil and keep burying the plant until it reaches maturity, until harvest time, and I guess you can just probably dump it all out and you'll yield more potatoes at the end. So what we're gonna do is I'm gonna be using my old worm bin. So it's got some holes in the bottom already, and it's kind of like a Rubbermaid plastic container that I used about a year ago. So I've got some soil in there from our yard and some compost mixed in there already. And also it's also a good way to plant them in containers because it'll keep them away from the sun. So generally when you're planting potatoes into the ground, you want to bury them at least 4 to 6 inches deep to keep the sun away from the tubes or the tubers and the roots. Just because if it gets the sun gets in there, it'll turn those tubers in green, and then the potatoes might turn green. So when the potatoes turn green, it's actually not edible. It becomes toxic, and it can cause irritation in your stomach, digestive issues. So you wanna. That's why it's important to keep the potatoes deep, and also they don't require that much sun. They do really well in the shade. So so what we'll be doing is, since the container is pretty tall, I think it's about 1.5 feet, about 2.5, maybe 3 feet in length, but that'll shade the potatoes enough so I don't have to bury them that deep. So I'll show you what I'm going to be doing. But anyway, so we'll see how we do with the container planting the potatoes, and then we'll compare it to how we do in the garden bed. So I hope you guys have a wonderful day, and here's a short clip on what I'm doing, and happy gardening, guys. Alright, so here's our tote, and there's some potatoes in there that I cut up. These are organic potatoes. Just picked them up at the grocery store. And remember, when you cut them up apart, you want to make sure that there's a couple, maybe 3 or 4 eyes on each piece. And I left them in this paper bag. I left them in here for about, I think, 3 days. That way it'll form the dry out this flesh or create a scar, so it'll prevent them from rotting. So since they're in this container, I'm not going to bury them that deep, maybe just about an inch. Generally when you plant the potatoes in the ground, you want to bury them at least 4 to 6 inches. I think we planted the potatoes 2 months ago at least 6 inches deep in the ground. So in this case, since we're doing it in a container, I'm just going to cover it about maybe 1/2 inch to 1 inch of soil on top of each piece. And then as they grow, when they start putting out the leaves, I'm going to keep burying them. So we'll just keep doing this, and we'll see what happens at the end, and then we'll just dump this whole container out, and we'll see how much potatoes we get at the end of the season. And here are our potatoes in our garden box, and as you can see, they are getting really big. So these are some of Yukon and red potatoes, and they are the organic ones, and it looks like they're almost as tall as Nikki here. So potatoes don't require much sun, so they're pretty easy to grow. And if you want to try to plant something, this might be one of the easier vegetables that you can grow in the garden or in a container. So and you don't really need to water them that much at all, because you don't want the potatoes to rot. So I rarely water this one here, and it rains a lot here in the Pacific Northwest, so we don't really need to water them that much at all.